I think that worked. Yeah. Okay. We'll start little bit lighter than other times, but hey, whatever. At least it works out because this is just a time where we just this meeting will just discuss some random topics and stuff like that. So it kind of works out being in smaller groups, I think. Um, so as per usual, we'll go through, introduce ourselves, maybe our majors or something, and then I'll spin this wheel, to which we added a few more things since last time. I think that we added the superpower one, maybe? What did we add? I don't remember. Pizza topping, we got a bunch last time. We added another one or two. I just don't remember which one. So we'll see. Let's see. Let me get up the participants. Bop. Okay, so I'll go ahead and go first. I'll start us off. My name's Kevin. I'm the president of the Philosophy Club, as you probably know already. Philosophy major, religious studies minor. And if I could have one superpower, what would you choose? We put these questions on there, but I had yet to think of them. I think people with lightning superpowers are dope, or electricity, I guess you could say, but specifically lightning. So some sort of superpower that involves electricity stuff. Other than that, let's see. I'll actually just go through the list. Nick, Nicholas Lowe, if you want to go first. I know there's two Nicks, but
yeah, no, Nick just works out.
yeah.
Let's spin this bitch. Yeah, I'm a philosophy major and applying to be also a psychology major, and I'm in there like philosophy of mind and experimental philosophy or XFI. Yeah.
Dang, look at that.
Wow. Okay. Shit. Mind reading sounds kind of cool.
Sounds awful.
With like an on and off switch. That way I don't just keep hearing random like voices in my head. I get that enough already.
Fair enough. Let's see. I'm just going up the list. Julio, if you'd like to go next.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Julio. I'm a philosophy major, and yeah. Movie you could practically quote from start to finish. Honestly, I don't watch that many movies, so probably none. It'd probably be some Marvel movie though, some Avengers movie.
In general, non-applicable, but a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
done.
Yeah. Let's see, Nick, if you want to go next.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Nick too. I think we established last time. So that's good. PhD student, second year philosophy. Pronouns they, them, there. If you could change your name, what would you change it to? I always like the name Jaden because it has a Y in it and a J in it. It's like lots of like nice, interesting letters. And it just kind of like feels nice in my mouth when I say it. So yeah, there you go. You can also call me Jaden instead of Nick too, I guess. I'll accept that.
Good choice. Thank you. And then let's see. Going up, Jason, if you want to go.
What's up, Jason? Another random grad student. Come on, they got the superpower question.
Dang, look, everyone's gonna be asked.
Oh, this is a tough one. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is like flight. Always seemed cool. It's like pretty useful and like wouldn't really be too disruptive. Yeah, I don't know. I'll go with flight.
Flight. That's pretty practical.
Boring one.
Let's see. Cecilia, if you'd like to go.
Do I just unmute myself?
Yeah. You're good.
Cool.
So if you want to, what's your major?
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. I'm a physics major.
Nice.
And if I could interview a famous person, who would I choose? You have to be living or dead?
No, either.
Oh. Okay. Crap. Probably Nietzsche to find out how incelly he was. or if he wasn't, because that's up for debate.
That's fair. That's a good choice. Let's see. Let me go up this list. Thank you, Cecilia. Let's see. Ariana, if you want to go next, you can introduce yourself and your major.
Hi, I'm Ariana. I'm a first year philosophy student. That's it. Nothing else.
And then let's see. What's your favorite TV show?
I'm a huge nerd when it comes to TV shows, but I for a very long time liked The Walking Dead, but then they've ruined it. And which is like beyond me is how they ruined it, because the guy who wrote the comics worked on the script for the show. Anyway, we don't need to get into it. But okay, yeah. The Walking Dead.
Good choice. I watched the first few seasons of that one, but
I mean, the last 2 seasons weren't as bad. They started to it came back around a little bit, I feel like.
let's see. And then just making sure I haven't missed anyone. I think it's Adam is left.
My name is Adam. I'm also a philosophy major because I want to work at McDonald's when I'm done. And
Hey.
what is my favorite pizza topping? I don't know. I mean, like, just like all the meats, basically. Like pepperoni, salami, sausage, bacon, etc.
Nice. Okay.
And
for sure.
cheese.
Canadian bacon too?
That'll do.
AKA ham?
If it came from an animal, well, hold on. If it
Okay.
came from a non-human animal, then throw it on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. I think that was everyone. Just double checking. Yeah. Okay. So if you guys weren't here for our last meeting that we did, the wheel, pretty much what we did, we actually discussed 2 different topics on the wheel. There's no like time limit or time minimum. We just kind of discussed some random stuff that we came up with on this wheel. Anything from determinism, which I'm sure we've all heard way more than we want at UCR, or Santa. So we'll kind of see. Last time we did what? I don't know how to pronounce them. Zungshi versus
Shenze versus Mengze's
Yeah.
or Hall versus Soul, State of
Yeah.
Nature.
That one, and then we did the unconscious violinist, right? I think it's unconscious. Yeah. So we'll see kind of what we go. Anyone can talk. If you want to talk, feel free. It doesn't even have to be like, this is super informal. So feel free just to say some random crap that you feel like saying and have no need to back it up in any case.
I mean, that's what I do every time I talk.
Yeah,
so.
that's just normal,
There you
normal
go.
talking, I guess. So I'll spin and we'll see what we get. We took off the ones that we did last time off of the wheel. Oh God. Okay. So brief. I bet everyone is pretty familiar with this, just being at UCR, right? There's 3 options here, whether it's determinism, that all of our actions are determined by previous events, that everything in future is deterministic and stands upon things in the past, and you can't do otherwise. Free will, which isn't necessarily incompatible with determinism, according to some people's view, and thus that's why we have that third one, compatibilism, if you believe that both of those perhaps are the case, and yet free will, they can be compatible with one another. Does anyone have any immediate thoughts before I just go ahead and start spewing some nonsense from myself? I'm sure everyone has talked
spew the
about
nonsense.
this. Yeah, spew the nonsense. Okay.
I'll spew right back.
Yeah. For me personally, I mean, when I started at UCR, because I'm a transfer student, when I started at UCR, I thought this was an interesting topic, and I've talked about it a lot, and I've gotten a little bit more bored with it, to be completely honest. I think determinism makes the most sense in like a physicalist worldview, that events of any kind have, causes. And to me, though I haven't read much on compatibilism, it seems pretty inherently incompatible with free will. I guess it's depending on everyone's conception of free will, and my conception of free will is usually not specifically the ability to do otherwise, but it's the ability to direct one's own life trajectory and one's own decisions, right? So to me, incompatibilism seems more intuitive as well. Adam, you want to spew some nonsense back at me? I'll take that.
I got some nonsense for you. So let me think up some nonsense. I come down on the complete free will side as far as experience is concerned. And I think, okay, if you're trying to get at like the actual, like what is going on behind the scenes, if it ends up being the case that's completely determinism, which I think is indeterminable, regardless, our experience, I think, is one entirely of free will, libertarianism, or whatever. So for me, that's all that matters, is how we experience things. Whatever's going on behind the scenes, it'd be cool and nice and interesting to know, but I'm not sure it can be done. And if it can, I don't know how. But anyway, I think we behave as though we have free will, right? You don't just wake up and be like, I wonder where my atoms are going to take me today. You make the choice, I'm going to attend class today. I'm going to log into this boring Zoom meeting today, whatever.
Hey, dude, chill.
You said spew nonsense. That's what I'm trying to do.
We just got started, man. Give it a second, Adam.
So anyway, I don't know. That's what I got. So someone else
yeah, what's
real
up, Jason?
philosophy back to us, and we'll see.
I was gonna. Would you be happy with an epiphenomenalism?
Yeah, feel free.
Sort of directed it to Adam.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Who?
Yeah.
To me. Well, I like the word epiphenomenalism, so I mean.
I do too.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be happy with it. I'd like for it to be free will all the way down, as it were. But I mean, how do you differentiate a free will epiphenomenalism from a compatibilism?
Hold on,
I'm just curious, where you would draw the line between the two.
For a stupid person like me, what is epiphenomenalism? Please help me.
I can give you some Greek roots if you want, but
no.
Well, Mr. Carnell introduced the term, so let's have him explain.
Oh God, well, no, yeah, so sort of like the view you were describing, right? Where it's not necessarily the case that there actually is any free will as far as the causal story is concerned, but yeah, so it's epiphenomenal. So it'll appear to us as if we have free will, but there's no real purchase in the causal order of things. That's probably not the best explanation. Something like that, right?
Yeah, okay.
A phenomena that occurs atop, which is where the epi comes from, atop of other underlying phenomena. So underlying reality is determinism or what have you, and then out of that somehow comes what we experience as however.
Or like another example people might know, Nietzsche was famously an epiphenomenalist about consciousness. He thought it's just a kind of epiphenomenon happening on the surface, and it doesn't, all the direction that seems to be going on there isn't really going on, and so on. Yeah.
Oh, okay, for sure. So I guess in going back to what I had said, I mean, from my views on the topic of determinism seems, again, from me having a very physicalist viewpoint of the world and stuff, it seems like every event must have a cause, but yeah, it certainly does seem as though we have free will. I mean, like Adam had said, it's not like we wake up every morning and just see where our atoms are going to take us, or it's not like we I think it's pretty intuitive that everyone certainly feels like they have free will, right? But yeah, then in that case, perhaps it's more epiphenomenal than my new word that I learned. I'd heard that word before, but I never cared enough to figure out what it meant.
Can I say something?
Yeah, feel free.
Okay, so I quit philosophy around the time I got to free will determinism. Well, I mean, I came back to it, but I never solved it, and it kind of scarred me. But I kind of went from the physical route too, and then I kind of realized I didn't know enough about physicality to, you know, have faith in that argument. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn more about the physicality of particles because particles are so random sometimes. Because I mean, if you go from like a physical determinist route or like a hard determinism, I think, then even like the particles need to be considered into the argument, right?
Yeah, that's true. Where after, I mean, like you said, you're coming back to it now, yeah? So where do you stand now after kind of looking more into that? I'm curious.
Well, what I learned from science is that we don't know anything. It doesn't mean we can't know anything or in the future, but it is a lot more. It is as it's a lot like the philosophy field as I left it. I mean, I went back to philosophy, but just like continental or not things that are so analytical, but I just kind of got stuck on the whole quantum mechanics aspect, as I feel like a lot of people, both fields, have gotten stuck with in the past century or so. Yeah, so I didn't really. I feel like free will or I mean, I think everyone here feels that, but it's kind of like, what faith do you align with that will help you, but not so much what faith can you prove, you know?
Yeah.
But if anyone wants to come here and check me, please do, because I'm still stuck on this. I think I bumped into this problem when I was like 15 and now I'm 21. And that's a long time. So help me.
Yeah, I'm not good at physics, but I don't know how well it works. Like at least like Schrodinger's cat stuff, where it's kind of like quantum mechanics that like something can be existing in two parts, but you never know until something. So I don't know how well quantum mechanics structure that, and if there's like some pure chaos in terms of order and randomness in the world, or rather it's all like perfectly aligned. The scary part being that's like all or nothing. But I'm not sure how physics runs. I do know some physicists could argue that like there is a possible like I forgot what it was, like chaos in math or chaos math, where there is like a literal random chance of things that no one can understand, or there's not really a good equation to understand it. And again, I'm very bad at math.
Yeah, that's the thing with and Adam kind of discussed this at first too, with like anything like free will and determinism, compatibilism. I mean, crap, a lot of things in philosophy. It's stuff that there's never going to actually be a definite answer to, right? So it's always interesting, yeah. And you find something that you personally believe for hopefully good reasons, and support it in that way. But anything, say that again.
Oh, and I'm thinking like if it's like you can't really, it's I imagine stupidly hard to figure out determinism or free will. But if anything of that, it's just like how you would, even if you figured the answer, like what you would do with it. And so believing either one, if you believe in more like of a deterministic sense or like a soft determinism, you can still kind of use that to your own benefit. And like say stoicism, it's like, oh, I don't know, I lost my job. It's kind of going to happen no matter what, right? So now you can feel like less bad about it because you had no option to play, right? Or something like that. Or if you go like full free will, existentialist is like, I shall create my future. So you can spin it to however you want, at least in that sense.
Yeah, it seems the next like logical question, and something that is not overlooked by any means in the field, is what are the ramifications of adopting either one of these views? Commonly something like with determinism and moral responsibility, big ramifications if, let's say, even a whole society decided that they were to believe in determinism, what is that? How do they now deal with moral responsibility in a deterministic world like that too? You know, it's like, I couldn't do anything. Sorry, you know, like it's not my fault. It's, you know, everything else led up to it. So yeah, even it seems like the next logical question or the next place to go would be, well, what happens if we do accept one or the other, and what are the ramifications of that in the future? Because I don't know if there could be an adequate level of moral responsibility within a deterministic viewpoint. At least not that I've seen very like a good argument for it.
Yeah, whether or not there is an answer and whether or not that argument is good or possibly two very different
Yeah,
things.
that's
But I immediately think of a different kind of determinism, not so much a physicalist determinism, but like a Sunni Islamic or old school Calvinist type determinism, where everything is determined not by our atoms or whatever, but by God's predetermined, predestined choices or whatever. But regardless, obviously, old school Calvinists and Sunni Muslims are still going to demand that you act in accordance with whatever their moralities stipulate. How they imagine one can retain some sort of degree of moral responsibility if they're already predetermined, predestined, what have you, I do not know. So if anyone else has any knowledge on that, please share. I am not the leading expert on Sunni Islam.
I don't know about Sunni Islam, but in the English-speaking world, kind of P.F. Strawson, back in like the 50s, wrote that really famous paper, Freedom and Resentment. I think I have a copy, I can drop it in the chat. And so what he's trying to do is saying, yeah, we can hold people responsible even if determinism is true. And so not everyone likes the paper, but a lot of people agree with him that there can be good arguments for why we can still punish people even if determinism is true.
Could you maybe briefly lay out the simplest of those?
Yeah, if you know.
Yeah.
So like punishment will have effects, right? And so maybe one of the effects of punishing people is that they're less likely to commit actions that we would label as crimes. And so if I punish someone, maybe I was determined to punish them, and maybe they were determined to commit the crime in the first place. And so like in some metaphysical sense, they're not responsible. But forget any of that, I'm still going to have an effect by punishing them. I'm going to reduce the amount of crime in the world. So there's one argument.
But there's no, Strawson doesn't take up like an intrinsic value to acting or behaving in a certain way, right? It's I mean, you only gave the one example of punishment, but it seems like they'd always be kind of extrinsic reasons for acting morally.
Well, yeah, I think he talks about several views, but the view I was talking about was like extrinsic consequence-based reasons for punishing, yeah.
Yeah, I can say too, like from a backward thinking, right? Of like saying like, hey, we need to punish people. Obviously, it's very socially appropriate to hold people responsible for their actions, even if perhaps they weren't technically morally responsible. I do the same thing with my animals, my pet cats, you know, like I don't think that they're moral creatures per se, but I still, you know, when they do something that I don't want them to, you know, carry on that behavior, I'll, you know, snap my fingers. Usually that's all I need to do now. But or what I usually do is I just hug them and they hate it. But yeah, so that definitely makes sense. But yeah, then there's always the question of more of a intrinsic, do they actually then deserve that punishment, or is it just a means to a social, you know, end, an extrinsic valuable end? I think that's something definitely to think about. Over in one of my classes, even right now, we're reading more of a contemporary philosopher who talks about this, Dirk Paraboom. I don't know if anyone's read one of his papers. He talks about 4 different cases of how determinism and moral responsibility are like incompatible. So it's definitely interesting. There's a lot of, I'm sure there are other thoughts that are more intrinsic, sort of like Adam was clearly looking for. And like most people are probably looking for as well. I don't know any off the top of my head, but.
I have one other thought. I don't want to talk too much. So do any of the undergrads want to say anything first? Okay, so just on the topic of incompatibilism. Yeah, so I used to be really incompatibilist. Like, yeah, free will and determinism are super opposed. Like, how could they ever go together? But so I think recently I'm becoming more okay with compatibilism. And it's because of arguments from Kant. So what Kant does is he introduces two different levels of analysis, the empirical level and the transcendental level. And so he does this with realism and idealism. So just to quickly explain what that means, like, here's a coffee cup, like, is this thing real or is it just an idea in my brain, right? And so those seem really opposed to each other, like, how could it be both? But so what he says is, okay, well, we split up levels of analysis. So at the empirical level of analysis, the cup is real, but at the transcendental level of analysis, the cup is merely an idea. And so I think Schopenhauer follows Kant in this. And so Schopenhauer's account goes something like this. At the empirical level of reality, how I feel, well, okay, no, actually, sorry, so I shouldn't say it that way. It's that at the empirical level of reality, determinism is true, because the empirical level of reality is like looking to physics and the neuroscience of my brain and things bumping into each other. So like if you looked at someone's brain, you'd say, yeah, like everything that they did was determined. It was just chemicals. So that's the empirical level of analysis. But then the transcendental level of analysis, which is involving my self-consciousness and how I feel about things, there I have free will. And the story of how that works is kind of complicated. But so there's one argument for compatibilism. You could divide up levels of analysis.
That's fair. And it seems like there's that involves a different or possibly could be compatible or non-compatible with different ideas of what free will is though too. Yeah. I mean, because some people, have specific ideas of free will, but free will, I guess possibly even not even the definition of free will, but just the degree of which you have that. Something like someone, a prisoner in an institution still has a certain degree of free will, even though their free will is inhibited via them not being able to leave and them having to go back to their cell every single night or whatever. But perhaps if they have free reign over the police during the day, then they have free will. Or even if you have like extreme an extreme case of that, of someone in an internment camp where every single thing they do is determined by factors beyond their control. It seems as though they still have free will over how they feel about it, right? And their emotions about it. Someone, I don't remember the author, but they talked about, I think it was Oshana, talked about a Jewish person in an internment camp or something like that, and they still have their religious autonomy to still believe, despite them being heavily restricted with their physical autonomy. Is it something any regard to that? Like you still, that idea, yeah, okay, so you don't perhaps have any degree of physical autonomy, but you still have full degree of mental autonomy. Or free will, I guess, whatever. Is there a difference between free will and autonomy? That's a super basic question. Does anyone? No, I don't know. I think they're terms used interchangeably as far as I'm concerned.
One's the German, one's the Greek.
Okay, fair.
I don't know.
But it also depend on like what context you're into though. Because
Yeah.
there are literal contexts where people don't have autonomy, but if like free will was real, they would still have free will. Does that make sense?
Well, are we talking like absolute autonomy or like legal autonomy or like
Legal,
social
physical
autonomy?
autonomy. So, like,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
obviously
talking about
those can.
context.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I guess that's a completely different question. I've always used those terms interchangeably, and I've never really thought as to whether what definitions perhaps might cause them to be differentiated.
They
Okay.
different. Oh, I was gonna say they bring different ideas to mind. I was just thinking that.
Yeah. How so? Like what do you mean?
Like, because I was thinking when I think free will, I think about the lack of interference or something like that. I think about the ability to sort of choose certain directions for where your life might go or something. And then I think of autonomy. I think about giving the law to oneself or something like that. I kind of go in a kind of a Kantian direction.
Okay. Yeah, because autonomy being more like, from its roots, right? It's auto.
They're
What
very
is it?
close. Yeah.
Adam, you know this stuff, right? Autonomy.
Autos meaning self, nomos meaning law. It's like self-governance.
There you go. I can always count on Adam. I wish I knew that stuff, Adam. I'm very
just take some
jealous of you.
useless 4-credit course at UCR, learn some Greek, and then do nothing with it.
Man, what a life. I'm envious of you, Adam. Okay, does anyone else have anything to say, or maybe any other topic of discussion? I mean, we could talk about this all day, I'm sure. Or we can also move on and spin the wheel again. It's up to if anyone has any other remaining topics, concerns, questions regarding free will, determinism, compatibilism, anything of the sort.
Spin the wheel.
Spin the wheel? Okay.
Spin the wheel.
Do it.
For sure.
It's determined.
And if it lands on it again, then determinism has chosen. Okay. This one is less of a two different competing sides. I think this one we were more so going, and it's not necessarily just Descartes' dream world. I just put that on there to remind me of the idea of metaphysics, and I guess I could have just put matrix on there, right? Like they're different concepts, but what's to say that we are not in a dream world, as Descartes might put it? What's to say we're not in the matrix? What's to say we're not wherever? Just any sort of, I guess that would be epistemology. Yeah. How do we know what we know? Firstly, does anyone think that there's no way we're in a dream and or matrix and or anything like that? Like no chance, or at least highly improbable.
I feel like
Well, no one else is going to say anything. Oh wait, Nick, go ahead.
I have an immediate sense I'm not in a dream, but I feel like that's it. I didn't think about it enough, but I don't know actually. Wait, Adam, we took the same class on this, so
yeah. What class was that?
Phil Dirty Eye with Harmer.
We just talked about Descartes specifically,
Oh, yeah. Okay, for sure. What were you gonna say, Adam?
I was gonna say, well, if no one else is going to speak up, I basically would tackle this the same way as I did the free will thing. Like, even if we can't determine whether or not we are, again, our phenomenological experience of how we operate and so forth is that we're awake in an actual lived world and so forth. And ultimately, that's all that matters as far as behavior is concerned. And even if our epistemology is technically limited within a matrix or a brain in a vat or a dream world or whatever, it's still functional and operative within that system. So I feel like it doesn't end up mattering in the end. Also, Morpheus saved me out of the matrix. So unless there's like 2-degree matrices here, I'm good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I was also thinking of mentioning that like maybe also people's roles can be almost defined by them. So for example, if I'm like living in a dream world right now, and I'm living I'm not living that good life for fucking Corona, but and somewhere that yeet me out right now into like some like crazy future that isn't like looking great, I'd be like, no, I don't want to belong here. Bring me back to my actual world that I identify with better, rather than where the hell I am now with like lizard people.
They did that in the Matrix too, yeah. I mean,
yeah, they all woke up in like a vat.
Yeah, well, and then
Cypher.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, someone chose the guy who ate the really raw steak in the movie. He chose to stay in the Matrix because it was just way cooler. And the Matrix seems kind of like they made a sucky world. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just the theme of the movie is like the actual world that Neo and Cypher and so on live in seems like the worst part of our world. It's like this really grimy city. I mean, maybe it's just where he lives. He just lives in, like, I don't know, New York or something. Sorry to people who maybe have come from New York, but but that always seemed like, right, like if you have a really good Matrix, then for sure I would definitely want to pull a Cypher and just be like, nah, dude, just bring me back. And that's totally fine with me. But it depends on the world. The Matrix world seemed kind of shitty.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I haven't been noticing, but how do people indicate they want to say something without interrupting other people? Is it
Just talk, or I, or typically, I mean, I just have the thing up to where I can see when someone unmutes their mic. If you do that too, and then
okay,
I mean, people
cool.
will know. But feel free just to talk. There's no point.
Okay, so just to add another layer to this cake, so what about like the butterfly dream by that Chinese dude?
Explain it.
Okay, maybe Adam can pronounce it. I know I like look Chinese, but I don't know how to say it.
Zhuangzi.
No, is that
I
him?
think it's Trunks.
I think
right?
so.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
were
it's
reading it
Trunks.
in our class, unless I got the names mixed up and did really poorly on that last quiz.
This one starts with an X, yeah? X.
No.
No, that's a
Wait.
Shunzi.
That's
It's a
Oh, okay, whoever he is,
CHUANG
he's Chinese.
Okay.
It's
That narrows it down.
okay. We're just giving the ethnicity the credit, okay? Okay, let me see. Like this? I think there's like multiple spellings of his name.
Yeah, maybe Adam got it in the chat.
It's the
Okay.
Wei Giles versus the Pinyin romanization of
Yeah.
Chinese phonetics. But
Oh my god.
yeah, same guy.
Wait, is it also the Tao Ching person, or is that
The
someone
Tao, no,
else?
that's Lao Tzu. That's the Tao Te Ching.
Oh,
Okay.
well,
That's a
yeah.
different
I
person.
misunderstood what you meant. Yeah.
Okay.
Different author.
Yeah. Okay. So wait, so you guys obviously know what it is, right?
I don't.
Wait, no,
I know a
like
bit.
Adam and Nicholas, right?
Yeah.
Like
Okay,
roughly,
help me
but
explain it.
I think Zhuangzi has like a dog sprint of like, how do you know you're not just, what was it? How do you know if you're not just a butterfly dreaming of being a human? Or was it
Or
the other way
human
around?
dreaming of
I
being a
have
butterfly.
heard that before.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Could I think it's just the earliest ways or the earliest like writings of
Mhm.
the dream world versus like reality. This is basically like CARP, but like Chinese and like 2,000 years before,
Mhm.
kinda.
Yeah.
And I don't think he gives I don't know his argument to it actually.
No, I think there was no argument. It was just kind of like an experience of like,
Yeah,
how
it's
do
like
you appreciate the reality you're in if you don't really know if it's real, you know?
yeah.
Oh, so he just
Yeah,
gives
but
people like
oh,
existential crises and then just dips without giving any sort of response. He's just like,
I
anyways,
don't think there's
peace.
like an existential crisis in like Eastern philosophy. I don't
It's,
get that kind of vibe from there.
I
But
don't
I
know
could
if
be
you call it
mistaken.
existential.
I just have like my own culture to go back off of. But can't this apply to the Descartes dream world? Like when you think you woke up and your brain in a vat, why can't you just be someone who's dreaming of being a brain in a vat?
Yeah, similar ideas for sure. And is there anything, I mean, heck, if a life as a human is better, despite you actually being a butterfly, can you really blame the person for choosing to just relegate themselves to their dream world or their mental reality as a human because it's just better than real life? Is there any, can you reasonably pass judgment upon someone for that? I don't know.
I'm not judging anyone who wants to be a butterfly. Like I want to be a butterfly. Like,
Yeah.
what is this college stuff? But yeah, is it like wrong to choose like a dream world or like a mirror version of, because in this case with Descartes' dream world, wouldn't it just be a perfect replication? So like would it be wrong to choose either or?
Yeah, with Descartes' idea, at least from what I'm familiar with it, at least, dreams are just reflections of reality, right? So like, whereas you can change certain things, he uses the word chimeras a lot, which I like that phrase, but um, to where you can like take little things, you know, like you can make maybe in your dream a unicorn, and it's because you already have the pre-consisting idea of a horse and the pre-consisting idea of a horn, and you just kind of chimera them together. But in general, shapes and you know, reality is sort of mirrored in our dreams. So maybe Descartes is a little bit different than something like perhaps the butterfly one or the matrix one.
Well, another like example of like dreaming and whether it's not like whether it would be wrong or not to like choose a dream or not would be like Inception. Like no spoilers, but like that is like a question in the movie. Like, is it wrong to choose to live in a dream or like reality, especially when the dream is so good at replicating reality? I mean, it has some like flaws with it, but that's another example.
Yeah.
Another thing I was thinking about the Descartes dream world, like, is because a lot of scientists are like, oh, we live in a simulation. And then there's also another like pop science theories like, oh, parallel universes, yada yada. But like if like all these universes were simulations, or like if you popped up into a new universe or whatever, it wouldn't really matter if it like was a simulation or like a dream, or like, would it?
Yeah, Adam kind of brought up that same exact idea at the beginning. It's like, does it really matter? And I mean, I guess you could say that about really anything in philosophy, but like whether we come to an answer or not, does it matter? You're learning uh, a lot of things. Let's say like the sciences, they're still learning a lot of stuff in regards to the simulation that we may be in. And yeah, perhaps you can say that none of it, would it really be right to say that none of it has any worth because we're in a simulation and it's not actual knowledge based off of reality? It's only knowledge that's applicable in our simulation. But considering that we've been in it possibly for quite some time, maybe it's still valuable. Or maybe we haven't been in it for some time. Maybe even our memories are fabricated. I don't know.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, feasibly, some people, not me, of course, but other people might do like really strange things in their dreams that they would normally consider odd, evil, immoral, whatever. But I guess that would be distinct from like a very lucid dream that you have, where like you can kind of control what your actions are and so forth to some degree. So I guess whether or not it would matter, as we're saying, would depend upon whether the dream we're having now, theoretically, is one of those where it's just kind of our mind doing whatever with us, or whether it's us like actually, you know, regardless of what we talked about in the determinism thing, whether it's us determining our actions, you know, vis-a-vis a lucid dream or whatever.
Has anyone ever had a lucid dream here? I've never had one of those where you can choose to like do
Like
shit on your own.
I've had lucid dreams all the time, and I actually have like a sleep disorder where I have lots of like hypnagogic hallucinations. So basically, before I fall asleep, my body and mind are trapped in this semi-conscious state where my dreams play out in real life. And sometimes if it's nightmares, it's really bad.
I was gonna say that seems like an amazing thing, but yeah, except for the nightmare nights.
Yeah.
That seems kind of sucky. Because as far as I'm aware, there's multiple states of what might be considered lucid dreaming, right? There's like being in a dream and perhaps something happens that sort of awakens a certain level of your consciousness to where you're like, oh shit, I'm actually in a dream, you know? And then maybe you can like control certain aspects or maybe even the full aspect of the dream. But then there's another type of lucid dreaming, I think, which is more hallucinogenic, where if you like lay down, at some point you'll feel like more of a weight come over you, right? And like your body is essentially going asleep, but you're still awake, and it's like your dreams play out in front of you, kind of like hallucinations instead of in a separate reality or something, like a dream world or something. I don't know. As far as I'm aware, I haven't looked into it too much.
Also kind of raises the question of like, is it true that there's no sign by which you would know whether you're awake or not?
Yeah, because in our dreams, from what we're considering, I think there's probably from like avid lucid dreamers who more so like seek after it. I think there's ways to awaken oneself from a dream, right? I think like the only one I know of is like some people I've heard that like, oh, like if you constantly like touch your index finger at the palm of your hand, um, throughout your waking day, you kind of it becomes normal, and maybe even subconsciously you're consistently touching your palm of your hand. And I suppose the story is supposed to be in dreams. It's often that your finger will just like go through your hand like a ghost or something like that, right? And so what people do, or something similar, is what you do is when you're awake, you develop this habit that you eventually take on subconsciously, and you're just like all the time touching your hand like a crazy person. And eventually that carries over into your dreams, where you try and touch your hand and you realize, oh, I'm a ghost, I must be in a dream. And then you become lucid, or what, you awaken, and then you sort of thrust yourself into a lucid dream. I'm sure there's other ways.
That's really interesting. I find that the thing that usually wakes me up from a dream, or like what is the factor that helps me differentiate between dream and sleep, is trying to talk, because I can tell whether or not a conversation I'm having is real or imagined based on what the other person says or what I'm saying. So if I feel like I really need to wake up, I'll try and say the same thing until like my lips move and I'm like saying it when I'm awake.
That's interesting.
Yeah, my methods are pretty similar to yours as well. I just want to slide that in there, but go on, Kevin.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, sort of like how Jason had originally brought up, right? Is are there methods of, clearly there's methods in our dreams that we can use to determine that we're in a dream. But yeah, I guess you could ask the same thing of the potential dream that we're having right now. Some people say deja vu is like that, right? Like it's a glitch in the matrix, when some like you just remember something. Like sometimes people have like strange occurrences and they're like, perhaps this is a sign that we're in a dream or in the matrix or we're brain in a vat, etc. What are other, I can't think of any other than deja vu. Which deja vu makes sense, again, in the Matrix. There's the moment where he realizes some weird shit's going on when like a cat walks past a door, if I remember. I need to watch that movie again. Cat walks past a door, I think, and he's like, and then he looks over again later and the same cat walks past, right? And he's like, what? Like, that's crazy. I think that's shit. Maybe that's a way. I have two. I was just gonna say, I have two cats that look exactly the same, so that shit happens to me all the time, so it wouldn't work. Go on, Cecilia.
Okay. I do. Oh God. Okay, I'll talk. I have two things. First, I assume that the qualifications for us to determine if something's a dream or not are different from our dreams and whether or not this entire thing is a dream. Obviously, because the things we do in our dreams is just like a different experience. Like the dreams that we are having will not be like a Descartes dream, because it's within the dream. It's like a teddy bear and then like an actual bear. I think, like, qualification wise. It would make sense that the dreams that we have would be way easier to wake up than our current reality. So that's why I wasn't really determined, like thinking about like ways to wake myself up or anything. Because I mean, I've done a lot of weird stuff. I feel like if I probably would have woken up by now, sorry. And I also do want to talk about the Matrix as like a cultural thing. Just because I'm not really sure when exactly it was released. Does anyone know? Oh, it was like 90s.
90 something.
90 something, early 2000s.
It was 1999.
Yeah, but I often think about like virtual reality and dreams as like a cultural movement as well. And I think that was coinciding with the introduction of personal computers into the world. So that also introduced like a sense of like a virtual aspect to a lot of people in like pop culture in the 90s and the 2000s, which I mean, I think we all know that it's kind of like a given, but it's just it's this is a topic that's really dominated a lot of conversations and art for the good early 2000s 90s up to 2010 like with Inception and so on. So I think like although it doesn't really give us any benefit to know or anything, I think it's really interesting that it's so prevalent still, if that's how you pronounce it. Prevalent, I don't know.
Yeah, because before technology became more of a prominent thing in our society, and then eventually ideas like the Matrix or something like that sort of became a technological idea. It was still an idea, going back to like Plato and his cave. It was still an idea. It was just much less feasibly imaginable for us, right? Because I mean, the cave still makes sense, but it's vastly different. It's less imaginable than, and it seems like it's an illusion easier escaped from than something like the Matrix. Now that we have this technology and we're able to imagine these crazy, alien species that just have crazy technology that doesn't make sense or something, able to imagine a dream or a illusion that's near impossible to escape from. Whereas perhaps in the Plato's allegory of the cave, that there might have been easier ways to escape or imagine escape too, right?
Yeah, I really like the point about going back to ancient times, like think like, oh, we're in a simulation. And so a lot of maybe people in pop culture or in science are saying that just because we have those words, but like Plato was talking about that with the allegory of the cave, according to at least some interpretations of Plato. So I mean, I really like that point. And so then that leads me to a question. So I want to ask kind of the opposite question of what Kevin asked at the beginning. So he started by saying, like, is anybody confident 100% that you're not inside the matrix or inside the cave? So now I'm wondering, is anybody convinced that you are inside the cave? So I feel like, at least for me, I am pretty convinced I am inside the cave.
Okay.
Well, you can't just leave it like that. You got to tell us why. That works.
That's fair. We said at the beginning of the meeting that is a completely fair response. I don't have an opinion on either, which I'm sure is most people, right? Yeah, I don't know.
I read something not too, like a couple months ago from I don't know if you guys have heard of Carlo Broussard, but he basically was saying how we perceive ourselves to be awake, and then in order to doubt our senses, we first have to trust them. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think Descartes kind of does that too, right? Like he does the opposite, right? He originally doubts his senses completely, and then comes to the conclusion that some of them, if something is clearly and distinctly understood or perceived or some shit like that, that it can be trusted or something.
Of course, you had to have something to trust at the start to doubt in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the point that Julio was making, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I really like that point too. Like, what does it take in order for someone to be able to doubt is really interesting. And it makes me think of the difference between animals and humans, which we were talking about a little bit last time we met. So like animals go around just completely trusting everything. But it's only humans who have self-consciousness who are able to really doubt things. So you could say like, well, yeah, in an individual human's life, first you have to trust before you can doubt. But then you could also widen it, like evolutionarily, the species had to trust before it could doubt.
That's true. Animals don't even, I mean, shit, if my cats see a mirror, they're gonna throw hands. It's like all bets are off. Like, yeah, so that's interesting for sure. I was gonna say something else, but it's blanked from me.
God, I forgot who made the dog experiment, but it was like, what if everything was made like 1 second ago, and whatever creator was like, just put all of like your experiences and like into you, as well as what you think your history was, because there's no way to really. I haven't seen any. Then I haven't looked into too much, but like major arguments against it, because it's kind of hard to disprove. Just like if everything existed only a few minutes ago, and everything was just put into you that you think you know now, but in reality it was just like thrown by God or something, or a higher power. Or
I love those type of movies, dude, that input memories into people. Like there's a movie I watched recently called I think it's just called Moon, of a guy who has like worked on the moon for a few years. I think normally in this universe, someone goes up to the moon. They're like an engineer who focuses on like some machines that are harvesting like energy up there, right? And they have like 3-year stints where they go up there and they work for 3 years and then they come back. Like that's their term. And he's about to end his 3 years when, you know, he realizes some shit's not the way it is. I don't want to spoil it, but inputted memories into people has to do a little bit with that, of like, you know, perhaps someone, you or me or anyone, could have legit just been born into existence like mere seconds ago. And while we remember these things quite vividly, it never actually happened in any capacity. So that's definitely interesting. Sorry, I'm on Wikipedia now. Will, I think this is like a good place to end it, though. We'll usually with these we keep it at exactly an hour, especially as we kind of had determined before, it's midterms, right? So give everyone time to finish those if you have any.